of Pakistani culture at its best. Camel skin and ivory craft are trademarks of Multan's handicraft repertoire. Camel skin is cleaned, dried and mounted onto molds which can be of any shape desired.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about, of course, the political situation at this time as far as the opposition is concerned regarding the PDM, the new date of the meeting, which is supposed to be now 6th, and what the opposition is planning. The government, on the other hand, of course, grappling with its own challenges of inflation and price hike, and also, as far as Shehbaz Sharif Sahab is concerned, he has termed all the statistics, all the figures that the government has given as inaccurate. He says that the information that is being given to the people is not accurate. The situation on the ground is different. People are suffering. All of that, we'll be talking about the two different narratives as they're coming forth. All of that today on Perspective. We'll also be talking about the Sindh Local Government Bill 2021, which of course the opposition is termed as black law. They're saying that it will open the doors for horse trading. Will it actually do that? The ramifications of the bill itself being rejected by the opposition, who've also said that it's against Article 140A of the Constitution. All of that today, we'll be talking about that. But before we go on to that, let's see a package that our team has prepared on the Sindh Local Government Bill 2021.
Next year. Opposition members raised slogans and tore copies of the agenda before walking out of the assembly when the House gave clause by clause approval to the bill. Opposition legislators claimed that they had not been given copies of the bill in advance to go through its contents. Sindh Local Government Minister Sayyid Nasir Hussain Shah claimed that the House had unanimously passed the bill as the opposition had opted to stay away from the proceedings during its passage. The opposition legislators from PTI, MQM and GDA in the Sindh Assembly met Sindh Governor Imran Ismail at the Governor's house to convey their reservations and grievances. They informed the Governor that the ruling party had not taken into account the due constitutional, democratic and parliamentary norms while unilaterally passing the new local government amendment bill. It remains to be seen how the drama in Sindh unfolds.
Right. I have with me today Ahmed Jawad, who's Central Secretary Information PTI. Thank you for joining us today. We have with us Barrister Umar Malik, who's a legal expert. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Barrister Hasnain Mirza, who is a parliamentary leader, GDA, Sindh Assembly. Before we go on to discuss other things, I'm going to go to Barrister Hasnain Mirza. Barrister, how do you see, you've of course rejected the bill. You've also said you've termed it black law. You've said that it will open, like I said earlier, doors to, horse trading. Why have you rejected it primarily? What are the reasons behind, terming it as you say, black law?
Firstly, there are two specific points of contention that we have. One is on the methodology, the unparliamentary or undemocratic way that it was bulldozed through. The Sindh Assembly procedures and rules provide for the way a bill is to be introduced, sent to a committee, considered, debated upon, public input is to be taken upon it before it is brought to the House for a vote. In this case, the bill was kept away not only from the opposition, but also the Treasury member backbenchers that we spoke to, and the Secretary Sindh Assembly himself was not aware of the bill until an hour before it was placed in the House and the vote was taken. So one is the methodology. Clearly it is undemocratic and unconstitutional. Secondly, the actual material that this amendment contains, primarily, we're of the position that it is against the spirit of Article 140A of the Constitution, which talks about devolving authority to a lower level where municipal matters can be addressed at the doorsteps of our citizens. Unfortunately, this amendment seems to again concentrate power and an oversight, undue oversight function with the provincial government. It is section 15 of this amendment which says that the power of government to amend schedules, notwithstanding anything contained in this act, the government shall have the power to amend, alter, add or remove any entries from the schedules by notification in the official gazette. So what mandate is now left with the municipal authorities who take a vote and are elected to serve their local councils, when the government at its whim and behest can amend the authorities and powers that it is to function under?
So how do you propose to now go about it? Are you going to give out some alternatives? Do you have amendments, so to speak, that you want to now move forward as far as this bill is concerned? How does the opposition want to move forward on it?
The joint opposition in the Sindh Assembly had taken a very proactive role as far as legislation on the local government system is concerned, and back in September 2020, almost 16 months ago, the opposition had presented before the Secretaries in the Assembly a complete bill, a draft bill. Unfortunately, our bill on the local government system was not considered, was not taken into account, and this very arbitrary amendment has been brought by the Treasury and pushed through. We have an alternative that is placed before the House. There are a number of legal and constitutional oversights that have occurred here, and I am in consultation with my fellow parliamentary party leaders, and we're hopefully going to court to challenge this act by the government.
Do you think that there is a chance that you can sit with the government on it and perhaps, come to some sort of an agreement? They can adopt some of the provisions. There can be a middle path, so to speak.
You see, that is exactly what a democratic process entails. That is our primary concern, is that there is that process of consultation that was bulldozed in the first place. If the Sindh government, without its usual malafide intent, comes to us with a clear head and a clear heart and sits down and wants to revise the legislation in the betterment of the people of Sindh, yes, of course, we would be more than happy to come to sit down on that.
Okay, thank you so much for your input. Thank you for joining us. Ji, Jawad Sahab, you heard what he had to say. Do you think that this is perhaps sort of the same? He's also talking about the same sort of allegations that have come out after the joint session in the National Assembly, and there has been all of that talk about bulldozing legislation. Some 30 pieces of legislation have been bulldozed. Do you think it's the same spirit of it? Why can't, we've had this conversation before, why can't you seem to have the opposition go along in some shape, manner or form?
Mahrukh, I think Hussain has very well explained the technical, the constitutional and the legal aspect of this. And I would be looking at it from the political angle. And Mahrukh, if we just go back in the history and we just try to compare the work which was possible in Sindh through the local government, that was during the Musharraf time. If you remember, Karachi had a very active mayor, Nematullah, something, I think his name, late Nematullah, he expired already, and another was Mustafa Kamal. These two mayors made a lot of headlines in those times as far as the infrastructure development and the local government work in Karachi, and not only in Karachi, all over Sindh. The kind of local government system was introduced in those times. For the first time, there was a lot of authority, power, resources were given to the local government, and we could see the result of that local government system. Unfortunately, from 2008, when Pakistan People's Party came again in the power in the federal and in the Sindh, and from that time till today, Sindh is ruled by Pakistan People's Party government, and they have. Are
you praising Musharraf compared to what happened?
I'm not a fan of Musharraf, but what I'm trying to compare is that the significance of a local government. That a local government is far better in a position to deliver for the basic needs of the people, and this local government has run successfully in some time of the period, but after 2008, we have not seen local government system working properly in Karachi and in Sindh overall. And Pakistan People's Party's government is obviously responsible because for the last 13 years, Sindh is ruled by the Pakistan People's Party. And we have seen the result that after 2008, and people who are living in Karachi or who visit Karachi, they know it, that we have not been able to see any improvement in Karachi. The flyovers, the road infrastructure which was done till 2008, nothing could be done. And then we have recently seen that how rains in Karachi, they make the life of the common people miserable. We see the traffic situation there, we see the power, sanitation, sewerage, not only in Karachi, all over Sindh. And it is because Pakistan People's Party has not allowed the local government to work properly, even if they were present there. And I think this was one of the major complaints from MQM that they were not allowed to work.
Okay. So you're saying that under the provisions, the way that you have now structured the Sindh Local Government Amendment Act, they would be able to do it better?
You know, with the present, the bill which has been presented by, bulldozed by Pakistan People's Party, again the objective of this bill is not to allow the local government to work with resources, with power, with authority.
You're saying
it's not the transfer of power from the provincial government to the local government. So they are basically
that misusage of funds, which you are saying.
So they are basically blocking that devolution of the power from the provincial government to the local government. So this they have done in advance before the local body elections.
Right. Okay. Let me come back to you. Ji, Sir, your opinion, your legal opinion on how you feel this bill has, the amendments that the PPP is seeking, the situation now. Do you think that it will empower local government? Do you think that it will restrict the misuse of funds? How do you see it?
Mahrukh, see, the local governments and these elections of the local bodies, they go to the very basic roots of the democracy. Because from the streets and from from that area, people are elected for the problems, for the parks, for the streets, for street lights and everything, the very common issues of a common man. So those people are selected to correct all those issues of people. But here what is happening now and in the past is that the MNA, the National Assembly, and sometimes the provincial assembly, their basic function is to legislate, to make the laws. It's not for them to go and check the street lights and to do all these things and to, pass and all that. So now the thing which is happening now, and the basic flaw in the law which has been passed by the assembly is that any outsider can come and he can contest the election for mayor, and of course everybody, any political party who is holding the main seats over there, they would ask give a ticket to somebody else, and then he would be elected by all those members. So the problem here is that the mayor is not going to be elected from the people, directly. That is the problem over there. That is why it has been said that there might be horse trading in those elections. The same thing happened here in Islamabad. In those Islamabad Local Government Act, that there was a provision and somebody who was not even known to people, who did not even take votes from people, and he was imposed by PMLN to become a mayor of Islamabad.
The bill as it stands at this time, the way that the government is wanting it, is going to be able to allow anyone affiliated with the party to come in who doesn't really have anything to do with the people. Because he would not be taking the votes directly from people. He would not be an elected chairman of some union council or maybe some other unit, whatever they have given in the legislation. So if the all process goes on, people would vote for somebody who would not be even able to become a mayor of the city. So that is the basic problem over there. So the person who would be heading the all this metropolitan corporation of Karachi or the city of Karachi, or not only Karachi but the whole Sindh, that metropolitan corporation, that mayor can be elected from anywhere. So it gives the power, it essentially gives the power to the political party again.
Yes, exactly. And then of course all these things, that can be manipulated by the political parties. It is not the people who are voting for mayor or somebody else. So it is the people would be only electing the chairmen or whatever the nomenclature they are using.
What about the argument that Jawad Sahab is making? The argument that we've seen what as the condition that Sindh is in at this time, Karachi also primarily, and of course other parts of Sindh. The way that the rain crisis highlighted the condition of the infrastructure overall, the dilapidated Karachi at this time, other areas of Sindh also. What about that argument? How do you answer that then?
I think the main problem in all those problems can be done and should be done by the local governments, by these people, the mayor and all.
Empower the local government. Let the person who is who's
directly elected from the people,
right,
and not from any political party and coming and saying that okay, that I am the mayor, thank you very much, like vote for me and that's it.
So that garbage disposal is a very big problem in Karachi and in Sindh. That is again something related to the role of local government, and that is why the Karachi and Sindh is suffering, because the local government system
Why don't you let them get empowered then? Why go for this this amendment, so to speak?
I mean, this has been presented by the Pakistan People's Party government. We have opposed like other parties, and they have bulldozed this bill. And like I said,
but they're saying you bulldozed it.
No,
the government has bulldozed it.
No, we have not bulldozed it.
They've called it, they've called it black law. They've called it, it's going to give rise to horse trading. It's a robbery to snatch local bodies' powers, according to them. All of those things.
No, I don't agree with that. I think we just have to take an example here in Islamabad, that the federal government has passed an ordinance which is meant to give direct power to the mayor, that he is elected from the votes of Islamabad, and then he is responsible to Islamabad. So we have done exactly opposite to that.
Okay. Umar sir, before I move on, I want to ask you, legally speaking, there have been a lot of questions raised on the parliamentary procedure as it happened in the joint session also, and some of those concerns are what Barrister Hasnain Mirza is also talking about when he says that this was bulldozed, and then that's back and forth argument. Do you think that there are perhaps we need amendments in the parliamentary procedure itself to prevent the kind of bulldozing, so to speak, that is happening, the kind of, the way that the laws are allowed, I won't say that this government, but any government, is allowed to bulldoze them, is allowed to sort of bring them forward. And then one argument I had, I think, last week was, I don't remember who, but somebody said very aptly that, well, there's a government and there's an opposition. I don't know, maybe even Jawad Saab said it, but, and the government's job is what it has to do. It has to legislate, and it has to do that with the numbers that it has, and the allied parties in this case, and it has to convince them, and the opposition's job is to oppose them if they can. And to do that, the parliamentary procedure has to be followed. But do you think those amendments are in order, perhaps?
Well, I think the amendments are in order. The problem here is that, again, like you said already, that it is about the numbers. So the government has always numbers in the assembly, but the process of bringing that bill to the National Assembly, the only thing is that that mostly opposition says that it was bulldozed and it was not brought. You were not given notice, and not like in that time or whatever. These are things, but ultimately it comes to voting, and then the government always has.
You don't think the joint session was it was allowed to come out and air on TV? It wasn't bulldozed, the legislation?
The legislation, I think it was not bulldozed, because ultimately it comes to the number game.
So it doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't really matter. Like the very, very minor things that, okay, it was supposed to be, brought in the assembly by 11 o'clock, and it, somebody is bringing it at 10:30, or speaker is allowing it, and some other
debate was
all
not
that.
basically allowed.
Yeah, debate was not allowed, and some clause wise
methodology also.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is that in Parliament, what should happen is that clause wise, approval should be taken and should be given by the people, and for every clause there is a voting. So that normally happens. But here sometimes what they say with the bulldozing is that they bring the whole act, and then the other thing is that mostly what we have seen is that even the MNAs sitting there, they have not read the amendments to be.
That's what I want to talk about. Do you think that the representatives of the people are, so to speak, the representative of the people, the MNAs there, do you think they're even interested in the text? Are they interested in debating the law here? Are they interested in commenting on it? Because we've seen, I'm very happy the way Barrister Hasnain Mirza has at least challenged it, whatever the right, whether it's right or wrong or whatever, whether he's on the right side. I'm not talking about that, but the point of interest, really, do you think that there is that point of interest, or is it just towing the party line, which is what happens mostly here?
what we have seen practically in the National Assembly is that they are not even by the political parties. They are just told that okay, we have to oppose it because we have to oppose it. That's it. Because they are not told clause-wise by the political parties in their parliamentary meetings that okay, this bill is coming up, we have to discuss it clause-wise. Because most of the times they do not even understand what is written over there. But it is the job of the political parties to at least tell them clause-wise. And we have also seen this that sometimes even there is a there is a something written wrong in the legislation, but still that passes because nobody is like interested in.
Nobody is
really
bothered, right, to find out what's happening as far as the legislation is concerned. But overall, why we have this political culture where we toe the line. Either you educate your public representatives or you go by the way things are going. And this is across the board. It doesn't matter which political party it is. Walsab, you agree, right? It's not really about which political party you're from. It's just how it is.
I think, yes, there is a political tradition in Pakistan. There is a political legacy in Pakistan that, I mean, everybody has to represent its party. They are also bounded by the party policy. And I think Barrister Saab is right when opposition just has to say to reject the bill, whatever is presented in the National Assembly, irrespective they have read it or not read it, whether they agree with this or not agree, but they have to oppose it. So it's a political culture we are also facing, which is not on merit, which is not really academically we can call it on merit. And it is just a matter of opposing because it is being.
For instance, maybe some members of the, I'm just for the sake of argument, maybe some members of the opposition agree with EVMs or they agree with the electoral reform as it's been put forward by your party, but that's not an option, right? Because that's how it's structured. That's how you.
If somebody will do it, he will be identified that even if he makes himself absent during such kind of voting, then his loyalty is under question.
Yes.
So it's not just that whether
it's a very tricky part. I mean,
so it's a political culture we have in Pakistan.
Right. I want to move on. I want to talk about the PDM. Before I go to Jawad Sahab, Barrister Umar, it's a culture of leaks, so to speak, and I think that it's been debated back and forth. But overall, how do you? I want to go into there has been legally a lot of debate on the fact whether video evidence is admissible or not, and in this case also a lot has been said about suo motu and how the court should involve itself regardless of whether it is recourse has been sought in this case or not. What's your opinion on this?
I think first of all, if we talk about PDM is like confused. They do not know what they have to do, like whether they should wait for next 2 years or let them finish their term, or they should go for like some dharna and like bringing down the government. The other thing is the video evidence is it is admissible, and once somebody proves that the video is genuine, that is under Qanun-e-Shahadat order, that is admissible, and one has to prove that it is a genuine video. So that is admissible. We cannot say that like there is a video and.
So in this case, where the Garrett, already according to one party has said that it is, you can just go and if you want, you can admit it in court. So
yes,
there's no bar,
of course.
Which is what the government has been saying.
Well, the government is reluctant so far. We have seen that in the videos and audios, those channels. I think government is reluctant to go for forensic or anything. But what is happening is that if the audio is coming, then there is a video coming, and then there is an audio coming from the other side. So that is happening. It's
so
not
you're saying that it's he said, she said, which is happening.
Yes, exactly. Nobody is interested, and nobody is ready to go to court, or nobody is ready to get it even like tested through forensic.
But you think it's about? So you think it's about politicking? It's about or is it just about the optics of it, how it looks to the people, or do you think it's really vindicating yourself in front of people 2 years before the elections? What is it about?
I think the problem main here is that after the elections it was very good to say, it was very like honeymoon period, saying that okay like they are corrupt, the other person is corrupt and all that. But now the thing is that their performance of the ruling party, I think it has come to such a level where the only thing left is the videos and audios. I'm very sorry to say, but that's how it is happening. And now I think the time has come up for the other political parties, because it is just too
government is saying, I'm going to let Jawad Sahab say this, but the government is saying it's not about the performance, it's about the fact that the cases are coming, as far as the opposition is concerned, as far as Maryam Nawaz and the Sharif family is concerned, their cases are now coming to a point where they need all of this to create controversy. Is that not what you're saying?
Mahrukh, in my assessment, I think the reason for PDM or for the opposition against PTI, it is not that whether PTI should complete 5 years or they are short of 1.5 years. I think their main fear is that if PTI is allowed to complete 5 years, then perhaps PTI is again most likely to win the next election 2023. So they can, perhaps might be ready to, endure another 1.5 years. But their worst fear is that what if in 2023 PTI wins the elections again? And one thing I agree that PTI has to go in the next election whenever it happens. It is based on its performance. Obviously, when we go to the elections, we will be viewed, will be seen for our performance in 5 years.
So Jawad Sahab, what about what about the economic performance at this time? I mean, as far as, of course, we have the Prime Minister saying that wait for it, a couple of months down the road things will be different. But overall, at this time, as far as economy is concerned, as far as your, the figures, today Shehbaz Sahab has said that the figures the government is giving out are not accurate. What do you say to that?
I think most of the figures cannot be manipulated because most of the figures, they have to be seen by IMF, they have to be seen by World Bank, by international monitoring forums, they are also watching it. So it's not so easy that you can manipulate those figures. I mean, if we have to see the economy of Pakistan, I think the brightest part is that an economy which was on a bankruptcy stage in 2018, now it has substantial foreign reserves. Its foreign remittance used to be around $20 billion and now it is going to touch $30 billion this year. If we look at textile, which was dead and it has taken off again, and we see marked improvement in the textile exports. If you look at construction, there is a huge activity in the construction. So there are many indicators which reflect well about the economy. But at the same time, I know there are two things which are hitting the government, are raising question. That is, first of all, the inflation. But we must not forget that in last 73 years, no government has ever faced a pandemic-like crisis for 2 years. I mean, if you have to evaluate the performance of PTI in the last 3.5 years, out of that, 2 years have been hit badly by the pandemic. I mean, the whole world has faced it. If you look at Turkey, it is the second highest inflation rate. And America is facing it, Europe is facing it, UK is facing it. There is petrol prices, I mean, which has a direct impact on the inflation in Pakistan, specifically. Why? Because our energy is an imported energy in terms of its fuel. So if the petrol and gas, LPG prices, they go up, so automatically the energy prices go up, which right now is 19 to 20 rupees, and which means every production, whether it is local or whatever, it is going to affect on the cost and the prices of that production.
Do you think that overall the PTI voter, the hardcore PTI voter, is not concerned at this time? What's happening?
I think PTI voter is still very much aware and connected with the party. Their spirit and their passion for the vision of Imran Khan, they have a great trust in his leadership. And as you just have seen Imran Khan's last speech, I think his voter and his worker believe in him. They realize the challenges which this government has to face, which cannot be compared with any past government in the history of Pakistan. And yet the government has been able to manage quite well, whether it is handling of COVID, whether it is handling the economy, whether it is handling the petrol prices, whether it is handling the Afghanistan situation or the foreign policy. So I think there are multiple factors which endorse the performance of PTI government under very difficult circumstances and situations.
Right. Well, overall, in your opinion, as far as the economy is concerned, accountability process, of course, one of the main one of the main points as far as the PTI government is concerned has been accountability. Even, very recently, the Prime Minister again said that, if these two families can bring back their money, it will fuel the economy, all of that. Overall, the accountability process, in your opinion, legally speaking, how do you think it's doing? I mean, we've had the NAB chairman make a lot of assertions even yesterday in the speech that he made. How do you see it overall at this time?
Well, I think if we look at the recent amendments passed by the National Assembly and brought by the government, I think that totally negates the accountability, their narrative, which they were saying everywhere. Because most of the cases, I think more than 25% of the cases from the accountability courts, they are now finished. There is absolutely, most of the cases, because some of the clauses which were there already in the NAB and then amended by this government, I think those have created a big dent in their narrative, because many of the cases they are being closed just for the reason because of these amendments which they have brought very recently.
Which amendments in particular?
Against the government officers, that if they have done something in good faith, and then there would be no nobody would be asking them, and the case would be finished. So what we have seen, and practically we have filed applications. I am a lawyer, I have also filed applications in many of my cases to get those case finished. And the recent in Islamabad High Court, in Islamabad accountability courts, many cases have been finished. So this goes against their narrative, and we, at least me, I'm very surprised that how could they do this, and I don't know how Mr. Imran Khan was told about this. But this has happened, and this is happening.
So you think the government officials are being given a pass as long as they make decisions in good faith?
Yes, and many of the cases they have been finished, and just on the ground that I made this decision in good faith and all that, without proving, and all.
But overall, accountability otherwise also. Ji Jawad Saab, let me allow you to answer this before I ask him anything more.
Mahrukh, if we go to the statistics of NAB, there is a recovery of almost nearly 600 billion rupees in last 3 years, which is comparatively with last 15 years before 2018, which was nearly 200 billion. So that's a substantial recovery by NAB. On the other hand, NAB has hundreds of cases which they have shown in their statistics, which they have been able to close. Made the required actions, legal actions, or recovery, whatever, plea bargain. So,
do you think it has to do with practicality? Once the government came in, once it started functioning, it realized that it has to make certain concessions if it wants the business of governance to be run as smoothly as it should be run.
I think that part is, PTI government in the very beginning talked about this thing, and even Prime Minister Imran Khan, he made this statement publicly that businessmen need to be protected. If a businessman is harassed, obviously it has its own impact on the business and industry of Pakistan.
So do government officials apparently, so only politicians are left then?
The government officials and the politicians, obviously the politicians who are running the governments, who are calling the shots, who have the authority, and in the past we have seen that it is basically the politicians, because they are running the government, they are leading the government. So obviously for all decisions, the buck goes back to them.
Okay.
So accountability obviously should be starting from them. But giving some protection to the businessmen, I think purpose and objective was
not
to create a panic among the business community, which was there some times back.
But he's not talking about businessmen, he's talking about government officials, right?
Yeah.
But Jawad Sahab, overall, let's leave government officials out of it, let's even leave businessmen out of it. Overall, how do you think, I mean, you're talking about recovery, you're saying that NAB has recovered all of this amount, but do you think that overall, as far as, for example, the PMLN is concerned, you know, they've been talking about victimization from day one. Unfortunately, nothing has been proven. Do you think it has to do with the way that the legal system is structured? Are you struggling with that? Is NAB struggling with that? You know, to pin accountability, so to speak? What is it? I mean, because we haven't seen.
It's an interesting question. Mahrukh, I just give you the example of Nawaz Sharif was when allowed to go to London by the Lahore High Court.
Yes.
And the government was hesitant, and the government stance at that time was that if we allow him to go, he may not come back. So government was asking for some guarantees, but if you can very well recall the decision of the Lahore High Court, which allowed them.
But I think Sharif gave a guarantee, isn't it true?
Yeah, he gave a guarantee, and I mean that guarantee was accepted by the Lahore High Court. As far as PTA government is concerned, we were asking some other guarantees.
But you could, go back.
So you see,
go back and you know, go back. What happens as far as the guarantee is concerned?
We had to follow. I mean, the decision of the Lahore High Court. So I mean, yes, you are right that we have to struggle. The kind of judicial system which we have, and there are bails which are granted, and the cases do linger on for multiple reasons, and in my opinion the real accountability would be possible by introducing judicial system. We need to reform our investigative institutions also.
But the way that you've managed to do the 30 pieces of legislation, I'm sure you can also manage to bring in judicial reform.
That is why government has introduced an ordinance. Government is trying to introduce reforms in the elections also. I mean, without having a 2/3 majority and without having that majority in the parliament, government obviously has to rely on ordinance and do its best as far as possible for regarding the constitutional changes in the system. So government's hands are obviously tight. It will remain tight till the time they have a 2/3 majority, and then they can bring major reforms and major changes in our system, whether it is judicial or it is police or it is civil services structure. That obviously needs that. No, the government has not said that you have to wait. The government is doing I mean, despite all these handicaps, the government is trying to bring necessary laws, trying to bring changes, whether it is elections, whether it is NAB, whether it is in other legal aspects. So government is not sitting idle and hoping that, okay, once we have a 2/3 majority, then we'll start working. Government is doing its job under the circumstances and bearing some fruits also.
Well, I think the youth and all the people, when they voted for Imran Khan sir, and standing in the dharna and making so many speeches that within 90 days we are going to do this and all that, and when dollar increases and the loan increases and all that, and like every single day millions of dollars are going into corruption and doing all or saying all that. So we had, and many people, they had hope in Imran Khan. Now saying that, okay, something, putting some blame on judiciary and some on the petrol prices are being increased because of international things, and then corona and all those things. I think that's not going to work in next elections. The thing is that at least we do not see, or the people, I think they do not see that even 10% or 15% of the promises made by Mr. Imran Khan, I think they are not being fulfilled.
But he's not saying that it is not something, according to Jawad Sahab, he's saying that it's on the agenda, so to speak, as far as reform is concerned.
I think it's not about, the thing is that if you are, now the common man does not, his problem is not now that what is going on in the, your institutions and all that. He says that, okay, give me petrol, which was like 90-95 rupees or 70-75 rupees, which is now 145.
But don't you think it's a reality that internationally when they talk about global prices, when they talk about inflation being a global phenomena, whether the people, the man on the street understands it or not, isn't it simplistic now for us to assume that the voter doesn't understand it or the voter doesn't know what's happening globally, even if, leave the education side of it.
Yeah, leaving that side, so once you are there and speaking on the to the masses and saying that I'm going to do this and that and all that, and when you are given a chance and then you fail to do that, then you cannot say that, okay, either you come and admit that, okay, I was wrong, I did not know,
no, but he
we were not prepared.
But he does say, the Prime Minister has, Javasaka are not wrong, has said on occasion that things were much worse than than the government, than he expected when he walked into the government. So
yes, I mean, and I think there is no harm in giving such statement. There is no doubt that the problem is more than expected, and he was not expecting pandemic. He was not expecting the petrol prices will be doubled. He was not
being a
global inflation coming. So altogether, all these problems are coming. But despite that, if you look at the mega projects, I mean, just look at the road infrastructure, which was done 700 kilometers by PMLN government, and PTI government has done more than 2,500 kilometers. And by 23 it is going to be 3,500 kilometers. So despite that, they have been able to make major achievements. They have been able to mega projects. I mean, the 3 dams which remained in the papers could be started. Krot dam, which has already been started a few days ago, 132 megawatt energy. It is megawatt electricity is going to give. Storage of water is going to be increased. The nuclear power plant, which was 300 plus megawatt project, has been completed. So a lot of achievements has been done. The foreign reserves are in front of you. The foreign remittance are in front of you. So textile is taking off. The construction activity is there. So despite all these challenges, government has been able to do quite well.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, Ahmed Jawad Sahab. Thank you for joining us. Barrister Umar Malik, thank you for being with us. Barrister Hussain Mirza, thank you for joining us for a bit. As far as at this time the situation is concerned, certainly the PDM, of course, we'll know on 6th December if there is a course set, which unfortunately they failed to do till now. So there is no clarity as to how they want to move forward, if there is a joint opposition, if they can come together and prove a challenge to the government. But of course, the government, at this time is grappling with its own set of challenges, being inflation, price hike, all of those things. Let's hope that as far as the government is concerned, it is talking about, of course, bringing in the Saudi money, all of those things, and the way that it hopes the situation can stabilize as far as the economy is concerned. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.